What's up, you heathens and demons, you sinners and saints? Welcome back to The Rage. I'm your boy, Nakasuchi, a raging atheist. Ali is here. Our guest, Ray, is a truck driver, and he is going to be talking with us about the supply line and the system right now during the coronavirus. We do have a few announcements to make, and we have a Misa knockoff to speak about real briefly. But what's up, Ali?
Hey guys, so there's been a lot of well-wishing from the community regarding my husband. For those of you who didn't know, if you missed the premiere this morning, first off, shame on you, go back and watch the playback. It was excellent work by our co-host, John Peterson, with Faye the Most Gracious, Apostate Alliance. They were talking to an ex-Muslim about the problems that ex-Muslims face, and why there are less ex-Muslims in the atheist community than we would expect, given how many of them there are. So there's some pretty brutal stuff that's covered in that, but it's really important work, sort of talking about the issues in the world, so definitely check it out. I think it was handled with incredible grace. But for those of you who, may be watching the playback and seeing the chat, my husband...
I'm not sure if they can actually see the chat from a premiere. I think that only goes on...
You actually can. You can click it on the side if you do the premiere.
Okay. Yeah, I never tried. All right.
It's closed by default, but you can't open it. So for anybody who saw that, not only did Mr. Knockoff decide to be a shitball, which we'll deal with in a minute, but also in the middle of that, I found out that my husband, who had chills last night and has been nursing a dry cough for the last 2 days, had a fever of 103, which I later found out from my father-in-law, who is an EMT, is the call the ambulance and see what they want to do with him levels of fever. So we did that. We called 911, and I told them I'm not calling to have anybody sent out, but I want to know if this is an emergency. Here's what he's dealing with. And the answer we got back was that we need to go through the health system that he's currently a part of, their online portal and stuff, and get him monitored and maybe get him to a drive-through testing clinic. They gave us a list of symptoms to watch for, and we were told the temperature that we should take him in if he hits. And we were also told what specific symptoms would also warrant a visit to the ER. Now, my husband is like me. He has asthma and an autoimmune condition. So he does have a weaker immune system than most, and breathing problems normally. So I also got instructions about, and this is for anybody at home, this is what I was told by health professionals, anybody at home, if you contract any sort of respiratory illness, including COVID, and you have a inhaler because you have asthma, it is indeed okay to use the inhaler. However, we were told not to give him ibuprofen or any sort of NSAIDs. We were told to give him acetaminophen or fever reducers that were from that class. Apparently, NSAIDs can make viral infections worse. So those were the instructions that we were given. My husband is being watched. We did give him some Dayquil, and his fever went down. With that, we're going to be checking him when that wears off again. But we found some Lysol wipes and stuff, and he's confined to his room. And when he leaves his room, everybody goes and wipes down everything that he touches. He's only allowed to go to the bathroom, basically. And if he needs anything, we bring it to him. So yeah, that's what we're doing. That's an update on him. He's okay so far. He's just very, very sick, and we're watching him.
Yeah, that sucks, Ali. So Yeah, hopefully it's not the corona, but it sounds like it very well could be. So hopefully you'll
Well,
get
yeah,
good
there
news.
were two active places. There were two active cases at his work, and he works in very close confined quarters. And most of the places where those two cases could have been, they're kind of communal areas where viruses, like there's lots of hard surfaces for viruses to grow on. So, like, I am not the kind, you already know this. I've been telling everybody, don't worry about it unless you have a damn good reason to be worried. We have damn good reason to be worried. There have been people who have died from my husband's work. So there's a good chance that he actually does have it, given the symptoms and the fact that we know there are actual confirmed tested positive cases at his workplace. So, like, again, we don't know yet, but we're treating it as if, and we're not leaving our house. We have family members that are bringing stuff to us, so we're okay.
All right, so yeah, hopefully everything will work out, and Ali will keep everybody posted on that. And I'm sure as this thing progresses, we're all gonna know people that either get it ourselves. So just, I think communication during isolation is important. Reach out, talk to people, make sure they're okay. Real quick before we introduce our guest, Misha Popoff did come into the stream earlier, bringing the trolling to the premiere side chat. After I stopped ignoring him, or after I started ignoring him, he left. But he made some claims, and he's making claims, and he claims that he didn't lie about me. And I'm like, dude, you emailed people saying I was a Christian. That's clearly a lie. You clearly lied about me. But he claims that he has evidence that this channel isn't demonetized, never was demonetized. And I just thought we'd just nip that in the bud. We'll just go ahead and prove Misha Popoff wrong real quick. There it is, Misha. There is the letter from YouTube. You guys can see my Gmail here. My 119 messages in my inbox. That, yes, I never check my emails.
That he never fucking checks.
I never check my emails.
I check his email more often than he checks his email. I'll put it that way.
So this is the demonetization letter, and it's telling me how I can monetize again. If I choose to monetize again, I will be taking down a shit ton of videos from this channel and putting them on another channel, because YouTube doesn't tell you what videos are flagged. But we know that we got flagged, and the community,
I do have the screenshot still, if you want me to send that to you really quick, so we can prove that it was demonetization specifically for hate speech, because that was on the main tab, and it's gone now because we've hit past the 30 days for reapplying, I think. But I do have the screen cap for when it first came up, telling us that the reason was hate speech. If you would like that.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, just Misha, just know what you're talking about. Stop spreading lies about me. It's not going to get you back on my show. As I told you in the side chat, if we decide to have you back on the show, that'll be a decision me and Ali make, or me and John make, and that would be a decision that's not only mine. I'm telling you, my input would be, fuck you. I don't want you back on the show. So maybe if you actually started playing the honest interlocutor, and I felt like it would be a serious conversation where maybe resolution would be occurred, maybe you'd fess up to your hate shit, that would be one thing. But right now, I have no need for you. I don't need you. I can talk to anybody, and it doesn't need to be Misha. You're desperate. Leave me alone. But yeah, Ali, I'll let you introduce our guest, and we can move on from that.
Hey guys, so this is Ray, and he actually reached out to me on Thursday when we were doing our stream, because we mentioned stuff with Corona when we were doing our rebranding stream, which if you guys missed that, that was also a really great conversation. It was originally just supposed to be an hour, and we went over 2 hours because we were just enjoying talking with one another so much, and because John is back. But we started talking about coronavirus a little bit, and the measures the Trump administration has refused to take and the reasons that they gave. And so, Rilla, who is a friend of the channel, this is her partner, and he decided to reach out to us from his cab on his 10-hour break on the road to tell us about the experience of truckers and what is and is not being done for them. So, welcome, Ray. Feel free to introduce yourself beyond that if you want to.
Hey, what's up, Nervadia?
Sup, Nervadia?
I'm Ray. Drive a rig, sleeper berth. I'm out on the road just about every day of the year. I deliver final delivery to stores, delivering food, reefer, and drive-in for what is the biggest distribution building on the East Coast.
That's a pretty big job.
Did you say food reefer?
Refrigerated.
Oh, all right. I'm a Michigander. Reefer, so
I knew that would get one of you.
I was waiting for not because I was like
3-foot long.
I'm like, where's your truck at right now?
Do what?
I'm like, where's your truck at right now?
Do you do direct deliveries? Now there's the question.
Yeah, I'm at the distribution plant right now. That's where I sleep most of the time, unless I pull up.
So you reached out yourself because you wanted to talk about, I guess, what the protocols are that are supposed to be being done and what is being done for you guys during the crisis. Am I correct about that? Is that kind of what we were talking about?
Yes, and I also wanted to cover how the current just-in-time delivery system works, because it is somewhat an unknown amongst most people.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, we are definitely all about getting education out there, and given that you are literally working in that field, I think you would qualify as an expert as far as those things are concerned.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll start off with, like, wherever you want to start off. Do you want to start off with the stuff about, like, the protocols? I know you sent me a couple of screen caps. I'm going to get those over to Knock really quick. I'm going to see if I can find that particular article that you have in those screen caps, so we can put it in the chat as well. But if you want to start wherever you want to start, go ahead.
Well, let's start with the just-in-time delivery system, and then we'll work up to what we're doing currently that's different.
Okay, so for folks that absolutely have no fucking clue what that means, go ahead. Like, do you want to kind of explain what the just-in-time delivery system is supposed to be and what people think it is?
Okay, basically, the just-in-time delivery system is most gamers will understand this term, min-max system to minimize warehouse space while maximizing profit.
Okay, so basically, like, you're trying to get stuff to the place with the absolute, like, minimum amount of time spent in the warehouse, or?
Pretty much. The stores at normal consumption rates generally have approximately 3 days worth of food in them. But they also get resupplied every day. So it's a rolling process of resupplying the stores while they're selling product.
Mm.
And it really is to maximize profit by minimizing the supply chain. And you get surges like, let's say a hurricane come through. You can very easily sell out the bottled water in a single store. We've all seen that.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, the toilet paper thing. Obviously, we've all been seeing that, too, if you've gone to a grocery store in the last 3 weeks.
Well, you go in the next day or the next 2 days, and you'll find cases of bottled water sitting around all over the place.
Mm-hmm. It's just during that period. I remember growing up in North Carolina, they didn't have snow or salt trucks back then. So anytime if we got a really bad snowstorm, like, man, the milk and the bread, it would all be sold out for those couple of days. And then, yeah, it would be like just restocked again the next time you went in.
Yeah, Cirrus and Ocean made a joke about that. You whisper the word snow in Georgia and the bread and milk just magically disappears.
Well, you whisper the snow in Georgia, and Atlanta turns into a wrecking yard.
Well, if you whisper the word
yeah.
snow in Seattle, like suddenly, we don't even have to have a single flake that's fallen yet. Everything shuts down. Like the joke that people make about pandemic, shut down everything. Yeah, that's pretty much what happens in Seattle. Like schools will close at the whisper of the mention of snow because in Western Washington, we do not have the infrastructure to plow snow because we only get it like every 3 years. Whereas over on the mountains, like they just like laugh at it when it shows up.
Yeah. Here in Michigan, we get disappointed if we don't see it too much.
I've got reasonably close family that lives up in Seattle. So the way the supply chain normally works is that we get products to the distribution centers roughly on a normal schedule, and it goes out to the stores on a normal schedule to replenish whatever they have expended or what they are expected to expend on any given day. And from that point, you go in to have the paperwork done. Normally, the paperwork changes hands several times. Normally, I get paperwork from the office, and when I get to a store, the paperwork changes hands just to verify that we're getting the right pallets, the right product to the store. Because I can have 2 or 3. I have had 5 stops on one trailer before.
By the way, Knock, I found the article that I got the caps of, so that's sitting in your inbox if you want to pull it up for when it gets referenced in a bit.
All right. Yeah, I was going to say that I was a manager of shipping and receiving for a company here where I live at for quite a while. And yeah, we were every single trucker that came in, they gave us papers. We made copies. We kept our copies. We gave them papers back. It was the same thing over and over every single day. The same
lots
truck
of
drivers.
lots of dirty hands.
Yeah.
It's a complicated process to explain, but a simple process to experience. A lot like the logs.
I think there's a kind of you get used to it type, right? Like when you first start tracking finances for a small business, it looks complicated as fuck to anybody who's looking from the outside. But like, when this is my expenses, this is this is that, you can very clearly see what it is. It's kind of similar.
Pretty much. Truck driving and all of the things associated with it are very simple, but the concepts sound difficult. Like the hours of service laws, I think I've explained them to you before. There are so few of them, but the way they interact is odd.
Well, it's kind of like in Washington, there's a law, when 2 trains come to a crossing, neither may go till the other has passed. What the fuck does that mean?
That sounds about right. But when you live it every day, it's very easy to understand how it all works together. That article was about the National Strategic Stockpile, which was started in, 99, I think the article said. And I was looking through it, and I happened to find a couple of quotes that about the current supply chain. Because it doesn't have very much warehousing, it's very prone to showing shock effects from things like panic buying.
Yeah.
It's basically what the article is saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, it also is saying that the Strategic National Stockpile itself was not meant to cover the needs of a crisis. It was meant as a stopgap while the other parts of the supply chain were mobilized.
Basically, right now is when they're mobilizing it, because we need to buy time to mobilize or to industrialize our medical fields again, because nobody's got the stuff.
Well, I mean, this is part of like the great American manufacturing shipping over to China. Well, even, those big things. Like, this is something I actually know a little bit about because I have family members who are dock workers. Seattle is the largest port on the West Coast, and because of that, we are the only port that can receive a particular size of tanker that comes over from China. So the vast majority of Chinese imports that come to the U.S. come through the Seattle port. So, like, we kind of have gotten to see what the disruptions from Wuhan, which is a big manufacturing hub in China, look like. Like, there's already dock workers that are starting to get their hours cut and such, not because there's any risk of them getting sick from anybody, from anybody bringing stuff over, but because those supply chains are so heavily disrupted too.
Yeah, that's a really good question that Maynard says, not to interrupt the conversation, but he says he has a job that's deemed essential by the government. They want him to travel. He has papers to travel. He's not sure if he feels like he should. That's a really...
that sounds like a very particular situation. We'd have to have more details to give an answer, but honestly, that sounds like something you should be talking to your work about.
I know me personally, I don't want to leave the apartment. So...
Hey, we got Ocean in the house.
Hey, what's up, Ocean?
This here is a folded up letter stating that I'm an essential employee and that I am delivering foodstuffs.
Which should be obvious by the fact that you have a truck.
You would be surprised the varied and sundry things that get loaded into semis.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, I wouldn't either because, as I said, I worked that job for a couple years.
Well, we all might, but a lot of people would.
I think a lot of people, they see a semi going down the road and they assume that it's, food or something. But yeah, I mean, it could literally be anything. I've seen garbage in semi trucks.
Ray, I know you're on mobile, so you can't see nice things being said about you. Ocean says, Ray's had me covered with driving advice from on the road long trips before, solid guy. So you're getting some love.
Thank you. So you've got that going on. Now, the changes that are being made. One, the truck stops are increasing their cleaning schedules. Honestly, I've never seen the sinks so busy. That's beside the point.
Hey, at least people are washing their damn hands. Like, that's the most you could ask, right?
They've done things like stick hand sanitizer dispensers right next to the exit doors, so that helps. You've got the paperwork, at least on my end of things. It never leaves my hand at this point. Knock, you're gonna go slightly insane at this one. We are not actually getting delivery signatures. I am asking for their name and writing it down myself.
Yeah, I was going to ask at some point if shipping and receiving companies are taking that into account because, there was a lot of interactions between, especially the forklift driver unloading the truck and the driver himself. So that's actually good to know that those precautions have been taken.
I'm sure you can kind of read the headline there.
A little bit.
No.
It's really small.
Delivery signatures waived.
Yeah. So that's good to know that they're taking precautions when it comes to that. And so are they keeping like you're pretty much just staying in the truck as they're unloading you?
No, I have to be in there to coordinate with them to make sure that they get the right pallet.
Yeah. All right.
I have a load map that tells me where on the trailer each pallet is, and I have to make sure that the right ones come off because it's not intuitive.
So have the trucking companies been supplying you guys with any sort of like disinfectant type stuff or anything to help keep yourselves protected?
They have. Hold on a second. I've got a few.
Because I know that there are a lot of companies that have been in a lot of shit. Like particularly GameStop is the one that everybody's been hearing about if you're in gaming circles. But there's a lot of companies that were in shit for saying that they were doing that and then not actually doing it.
Oh God.
Yeah. They also tried
I
to claim
don't-
that they were an essential business and got into a lot of trouble in a bunch of different states.
That doesn't surprise me. We're getting. My company has sent out a couple of messages. I can't find them right now. They're getting vital, basically supplies that we would need on the road into terminals, which is basically a some might call it a depot. If we were operating a rail line, you might call it a rail yard.
Mm.
It's basically a place to put trailers, trucks, repair facilities, all that stuff.
Well, you'd think that
Dispatch
they you'd think the supply lines themselves would have the best access to the supply line.
Yeah, they do. But the thing is, they're trying to limit our contact with stores and such,
Mm-hmm.
which is why they're establishing these. Basically, they're planning on selling it to us from there
Mm.
instead of us having to go into a store and have contact with, well, who knows what.
Have any truck drivers that you know, or have you heard of any that's actually caught COVID yet?
I do not know. There probably are.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. But yeah, it's something that I've been seeing on Facebook a lot. The supply chain. I think I even saw Trump talking about the supply chain a couple days ago, and it does seem like they're at least on top of that, having that function. Do you think that it's functioning at top capacity? You know, like there's a reason why toilet paper's not on the shelves right now, or is there a failure at the top, some along those lines?
Production will keep up with demand if you look at it overall. The problem is people are panic buying.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, they only plan for 3 days supplies at a store and resupply from the distribution centers. Now, hold on. How should I phrase this? Because I had a
Basically,
phrasing in my head and it went out the window.
eventually demand will level off a little bit as the people who are going to panic buy realize they have already panic bought, and so the panic buying slows down.
Yeah.
I mean, the system is tweaked so that holidays like Thanksgiving and such are roughly what the system is designed to handle at peak. We're getting the stores restocked.
People are just running off with shit before you can get restocked again.
Oh yeah, there's lines outside the grocery stores at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, we're actually lucky because we have 3 immunocompromised people in our house. We're able to take advantage of a special sort of shopping hour that one of our stores has set up, so we've been able to keep stocked.
They're doing that in our town now. I think elderly and the sick get in first for the first hour, and then after that, it gets opened up for everybody else.
But as of now, we're not allowed to leave our house for 2 weeks, or at least I'm not letting anybody leave because Steve might have it. And until we get permission to go out to get him tested, we're treating as if, because there's a good chance. But so far, we actually are pretty well stocked ourselves, but not because panic buying or hoarding, but because I just naturally already had a lot of dry goods in my pantry and such. So basically, we already have a bunch of dry and frozen goods already there. We were kind of lucky in that way because, like, dried beans and things don't take up a lot of room, but you can cook a crap load of food out of them. Stuff like that. We just already had a lot of that stuff because we buy in bulk a lot, so we'd buy and, like, fill these big tubs when people weren't panic buying, and we just have those until we use them up, and then we go and we buy more.
The federal government recommends that everyone have, what is it, 2 weeks supply in their house.
Mm.
The preparedness community recommends 3 months supply, and nobody does it.
Yeah, we usually have about 2 weeks worth, and again, it's just kind of the natural way we buy because we are vegetarian. We eat a lot of grains and beans and things of that nature, and you can get deals when you buy a lot and you buy out of the bulk section. You can get like a big bag of brown rice for not that much.
Yeah,
That
I mean,
kind
like,
of thing.
the only good thing about this Corona isolation so far for me is that I know I can cook again because I never did before. We never kept anything here. Like it just like I would have like a day's worth of food, and the next day I'd go and get what my daughter needs. I always ate at work. Never kept food here. Now I realize I can still cook, and I'm a damn good cook.
So, you said that you kind of wanted to cover a little bit of like what's been going on with truckers just overall. When you first contacted me, what specifically did you want to talk about? Like, was that all that you wanted to talk about, or like the way that the way that restocking works?
I was aiming to cover the supply chain because there are a lot of people that don't understand how it's designed to work, and to cover the changes we made. Honestly, I have heard some things that make me a little leery. One of the fuel stations that I go to quite often, I was talking to one of the attendants from 6 feet distance about their county or something, talking about shutting everything down. Well, the problem is, if the trucks can't get fuel, we can't deliver things.
Yeah.
Now, I have a 200-gallon fuel capacity. I can make approximately 1,400 miles if I run them dry, or at least as close to dry as I ever want to come. And that will run me for 2 to 3 days, depending on conditions.
Yeah, that was the thing that when the governor shut us down, that people were like, how are you going to get gas? Of course, and then they just keep those places open, and it's a good thing, I think. But it would be scary. Yeah, like how would we function if they had to close everything down? As I think was kind of the suggestion maybe for a few states. Until today, doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Well, and we're in shelter-in-place orders, but like they haven't shut everything down. And actually, fuel stations for truckers are on the essential list. Last I was reading.
Yeah, we are too. I think it's like a $500 fine if you're actually out not doing essential shit. But people don't really seem to care.
Yeah, I think it's like a $5,000 or $10,000 fine in King County, but that's also because, again, most deaths and most cases, though I think New York actually finally surpassed us for cases, not deaths yet, but cases.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I was watching this really weird chart, and then we can get back to the supply chain, but it was on Facebook, and it was, the countries that had the most cases going through the weeks and months since it started. And Italy's always right there in the front, just chugging along. It almost looked like a race, and at the very end, here comes America out of nowhere and just boom wins the race. It was crazy.
I mean, that's the way it always is. America tends to take time to ramp up to anything.
Yeah So yeah, it does. It's crazy how much cases we have now. I think we're over 100,000 cases here in America now, and it's just spreading like wildfire. I don't trust Trump, but I do trust Dr. Fauci. Although I never trust anybody that strokes Trump's ego, and he's done it a few times, but he's done it the least. And of course, everybody's talking about his little rebellions. But I do trust him, and he seems to think that maybe the peak will come end of April, and then things will start to get better. So we've got like a month, y'all.
Well, that is if we can reduce
that's
everybody's social contact by 90%.
That's if people's social distance.
If we don't, I've seen some very interesting projections that were done by data scientists that suggest that we could be upwards of 2 million deaths. If we can only get social contact reduced by, say, 60%, we'll be up to 2 million deaths by the end of the year.
Yeah,
and it won't level off until August.
Trump was actually tossing those numbers around today. It kind of surprised me. It's almost like they realized they had to grasp onto the reality of the situation. And yeah, if we didn't take these measures, or if he let up on the measures too early, we're facing millions of deaths.
Well,
I mean, use a big enough hammer, you can break any rock.
So I guess since Ray is here, and Knock, you have been popping the fuck off about this, I guess this is a great time to bring up that woman in Michigan.
Yeah. It's been driving me nuts.
Well, you want to expand on that? Because it's your governor that's getting fucked over. Mine apparently kissed enough ass that he was able to actually get help. Yours, on the other hand, I guess, probably because she doesn't have a pair of nuts, at least not any that that Trump can see, is kind of getting into some problems with him, isn't she?
She was highly critical of him, and there's rumors and speculations that she might be at the top of Biden's VP list. She's a very popular governor here. Not my favorite person personally. I didn't vote for her in the primaries. I did vote for her to be governor, but she's done a decent job, and especially when it comes to Corona, the people here in Michigan love the job that she's done. She took the initiative, and she's actually stood up to the president. Now today, President Trump said that none of it's true. Of course, there's a lot of reports coming out that red states or governors that are stroking Trump's ego are getting what they want. States like New York isn't. For instance, like Florida has gotten everything that they've asked for 100% and they're not even really an issue. Yeah, I mean, every state's an issue, but New York should be a higher priority. New York is not getting what they need. Michigan wasn't getting nothing.
Well, I mean, the governor
said that the federal government is giving us nothing. Now, Trump today said that he's going to, but he ain't giving us shit.
She came out and said that companies were told not to ship things to Michigan.
The administration was telling companies not to ship to Michigan, to that woman in Michigan. So there's a very popular meme going around on Facebook here in Michigan that we are Michigan and that woman is our governor. Yeah, I'm a little outraged. Allie's on my Facebook, so she sees my outrage.
Oh, yeah. I've been seeing it for days, and that's why I brought it up, is because I think this would be an interesting time since we're talking about supply chains. Like, how can that kind of fuckery, like being banned from, told that you're banned from delivering to a single state, how does that look from your guys' side?
Impossible.
Oh?
Yeah, I don't think that it, like, he would literally have to use the military.
You can tell us to do anything. You can tell us to do anything. Whether we will do it or not is entirely up to whether or not we feel like doing it. I am literally in the only profession that if I can say 3 words and my company can't do shit to me. Not safe driving.
Hell yeah.
If I send that to any form to them, they will say, okay, we'll find somebody else.
Yeah, so I mean, that is reassuring. And I think it would take some like great desperate act of like the military to keep everything out. But the president should not be using his political power to even push onto private companies not to help particular states, because that governor, I mean, and I think Trump realized his mistake today, because like he realizes he needs Michigan to win, right? If he pisses off all the voters here in Michigan, he's going to fucking lose without a doubt. He's got to win Michigan. And he realized it. If you watch his press conference, he went out of his way several times to talk about how he loves Michigan and how he's brought the auto industry back to Michigan. Motherfucker, it never left. It's what we've been living on since I've been born. But
yeah, like
I know what he means. It did get depleted there for a while.
Yeah, and I think that as far as like, Michigan is concerned, like the fact that he was willing, even for 30 seconds, to sacrifice. Now we're going to say for the state of Michigan, like that if we're talking 2% of the population, whatever, right?
Yeah, in Detroit,
2% of the population is
People
probably
are dying in Detroit right now.
Yeah, 2% of the population is probably hundreds of thousands. We'll be conservative on that. If we're talking 2 million deaths nationwide, it's probably 100,000 in Michigan. That's still thousands of people whose lives Trump was willing to sacrifice over words said to him by somebody that he does not respect.
A young woman.
A colleague that he does not respect.
A young woman, especially, because we all know, I mean, he's got disdain for women. He doesn't respect them.
Well, and I wasn't even going to bring, like, the politics there into it. I'm just talking about, objectively, a human being said words that hurt his feelings, and he decided that he was going to kill thousands in response. Does that not sound like a despot to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, Will, if you're still in the chat, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe, and maybe they're getting the ventilators now. New York needed 30,000 ventilators. They sent them 4,000. And Cuomo just like literally went on TV and he's like, "What about the 26,000 people that's gonna die now?" Like,
yeah.
But Florida's gotten 100% of everything they've asked for, and there's a lot of reporting on this now.
And Trump declared a state of emergency in Kentucky as well, and Kentucky has less than 1/10 of the cases that New York does.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely some fishy shit's going on behind the scenes, and I mean, here's the thing: he's not going to get away with it. They're already reporting on it. He's stupid for doing it. He could really use this opportunity to like bring people together. All great presidents do that in times of crisis. He's just stupid. But I'm not going to rant too long on the president. Allie, it's your fault talking about this whole Michigan thing.
Well, if we're talking about the supply lines and we're talking about the president trying to stop the supply lines from entering, I think that that's still on topic.
Oh yeah, it's definitely on topic. And you know, I'm a little hot about it. I'm trying not to be here on stream, but I'm very upset, and a lot of people here. But I think rightfully so. A lot of people are just upset with the blatant sexism of his remarks. That woman in Michigan, don't call that woman. You know, I mean, come on. It's 2020, dude. It's not 1912 anymore. You're the president of the United States.
I mean, you're never going to be able to tell the truck drivers what to do. If you tell them it's illegal, half of them won't care.
Yeah, go ahead and say that.
Trust me, the truck drivers I knew gave no fucks, man. They'd come. They gave no fucks. They were pretty cool guys.
Like I weaseled out of a log violation yesterday, and yeah, fun times.
So in the chat, really brought up. We brought up hotspots earlier. She says that you're circulating in at least 3 hotspots right now.
Something like that, yeah.
So what would you say the unique risk that is trying to be minimized might be for truck drivers, apart from the fact that you guys are like physically in a lot of places, but obviously you're sealed in your cab most of the time. So what would you say the unique risk for truck drivers as far as contact would be? Like, when do you have the most interaction with people?
At deliveries. And the problem is, let's say I get sick. With this coronavirus, its gestation period where you're contagious still is so freaking long. I could easily visit 15 or 20 locations and spread it without knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's my biggest fear.
So do you guys have any sort of access to masks or anything for you to wear in case you spread it? Like a mask that you could put on when you're interacting with people and then take back off when you're in your cab?
I've been looking to try to acquire some. I'm not going to take the last few boxes off of the shelf. So I haven't been able to get masks or gloves.
Because, I mean, that's more for protecting the people that you might come into contact with than yourself at that point. Because, like, we already know the mask doesn't actually stop the spread, but we do know, or it doesn't stop you from catching it, but it can stop you from spreading it. Like, I'm going to be working on making my husband some homemade masks so that he could, when he leaves his room, he can put one on and, you know, maybe have a lesser chance of getting us sick.
Yeah. You've got that. You've got the supply chain that, honestly, we were probably making maybe 2,000 ventilators a year. So imagine how hard of a strain it's putting on manufacturing to need, let's say, 500,000 in 2 months.
Hey, we've got Nathan in the chat.
Well, yeah, and not only that, and I think that that's the biggest criticism of Trump. Not to go back to Trump, but like we should have been. The moment we learned the details about Corona and realized it was going to come here, maybe instead of calling it a hoax, we should have started building these ventilators back then, and we could have already pumped them into the hospitals. Maybe at least have been a little bit more prepared, but that didn't happen, and we are in the spot we are now. So you as a truck driver, like, what are the like, is it possible to get the ventilators to New York as fast as they need them, or is that just not going to be possible? There, you have a limited amount of truck drivers. You got to transport them, whatnot. Is it possible to even get them there?
Honestly, anything is possible with money. And I do mean anything.
Yeah. Money makes the world go round.
So we have another truck driver in the chat, by the way, and he says that fuel stops are probably the worst places for viral transfer.
I would say they're a close second. It depends on what type of truck driving you're doing.
Yeah, for the record, Ray is a long-haul trucker that does refrigerated goods, right? Or no?
I do warehouse work.
You do warehouse work.
I
okay.
haul out of a warehouse to deliveries.
Okay.
Final delivery to store.
Okay.
I just run like a long haul driver because I work 400 miles away from home.
Yeah, you were saying you're only home for about a month out of every year, interspersed every 6 weeks.
Yep, about 4 days every 6 weeks.
Okay, so Bob says that he actually is a long haul, whereas you are you work out of the warehouse in your final delivery, but you work like a long haul.
Yeah, pretty much. Now for long haul drivers, it very much is truck stops. And
yeah, that's I would imagine. I've taken a lot of trips. Coming from North Carolina, being raised in North Carolina, my mom living here in Michigan, we were driving North Carolina and Michigan 2-3 times a year, and just stopping at the restaurant stops along the way, like those places would be just crowded. I'm sure it's probably a little better now. People aren't out as much as they were.
So,
I had to get a drink of water.
Coming back to the ventilators thing, I mean, obviously it'll take time for manufacture, but do you think that it is possible to get enough of them to people, or do you think that it would be just not feasible given our current infrastructure?
If we take drivers off of other loads, it is very feasible to get ventilators to places. It takes a solo driver 5 days to go from coast to coast.
Okay,
it takes a team of 2 drivers 2.5 days to go from coast to coast.
So what would you say, what would be required in order to do something like that? Like, do you think that would have to be a government intervention? Do you think that, that companies, if they were commissioned, would do it willingly? What sort of process would have to go into that?
Companies will be fighting over the contracts to haul the freight. I think it would be best if they went for team drivers and just had a federal mandate that the 70-hour rule is out the window and just roll on.
Okay, so it would be feasible, but there would have to be some kind of government action that would be taken.
Yes, I mean, the 70-hour rule would basically impose 1 day downtime every 5 days or so, depending. And getting rid of that would just let things go that much faster. Or you could hire a couple more drivers and it wouldn't make any difference.
You would think that we have plenty of workers now that could. You think that they could find some drivers, but then it's not just like you can become a driver. You've got to go to school for it. You've got to get the certain driver's license and.
Oh yeah, there's a whole process behind that.
It takes about a month to get certified to drive a semi.
But it can be expensive, right? Like most companies won't front that cost unless there's a huge hiring demand.
Actually, there are several companies that will front the cost. And then, honestly, they won't even charge you for it as long as you work for them for... My company did a 2-year contract that I worked for 2 years, and I slowly paid it back.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, my brother-in-law was trying to get into like long-haul trucking type stuff specifically, and he said that most of the companies, I guess there wasn't a lot of hiring going on or something at the time, that they wouldn't pay for it.
There are certain companies that do a lot of new driver hiring.
Mm-hmm. So you just kind of have to know which ones they are, basically.
Yeah. You have to know which ones they are. You've got, oh, crud. Any other time I was trying to think of it, I'd be able to rail off like 3 or 4 right off the top of my head.
I do that all the time.
So I guess sort of coming back to things, what, if anything, do you think that folks at home could potentially do for truckers, or do you think there's anything that needs to be done, or just more education needs to be out there? Do you think that the media has been covering things wrong? Like, is there any sort of call to action you would like to put out there for our viewers?
I think people should try to avoid leaving their homes if at all possible. When you're going shopping, don't take the whole family with you. There is no need for it, and that increases risk of exposure.
Mm-hmm. If somebody in your house is coughing, don't leave your fucking house. Treat as COVID.
That would help. Not everyone has a support system that would allow them to.
I understand
as I
that.
said, very few people have the food reserves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've been very lucky. Like, I spoke about it before. My brother does like all the running for the whole family. Like I worry about him all the time because he's the one going to the grocery stores for almost everybody. And I've been able to pretty much stay here and only leave. Last night we took a walk at like 10:30 at night. And so I've been lucky. I think that a lot of people, you probably have no choice. You've got to get out there every day.
Yeah, we got lucky. I thought that we didn't have that sort of extra like support system, but my friend who runs the coffee stand, the one who we were worried was getting sick, she actually has been willing to help run stuff for us. And my sister-in-law came and dropped by supplies earlier, like literally before the stream started. I answered my phone because she had dropped stuff at our door. So we got lucky that there are people that are willing to help us.
Yeah.
But
sorry, Misha's still being Misha. I've been reading Discord.
Oh God. But I guess, so is there anything, do you think, that can be done? Like, I know that a lot of people have been working on, say, sewing masks or things. Is there anywhere where if people wanted to give those to truckers, if you guys are having a hard time getting your hands on those, is there anywhere where those could be dropped off if somebody knows for a fact that they're not sick? Because I know there's been research that shows that, say, a cotton mask can block something like 70% of particulates that you're expelling. So, something like that could be one-time use or even be washed in between.
That's a hard question to answer. Those masks decay after just a few washes to the point where they aren't as effective.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very careful with them. As for getting them to a driver, I don't know where a good place for that would be.
Okay. Basically, if you have a friend or family member that is, then maybe do it, but otherwise, it's not going to help all that much.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I did see like the federal government is urging more people to wear masks, but I don't know their reasoning behind it. And I think
the
it's
reasoning
like
is
pretty
that you
hard to
could
get
be.
them.
The reasoning is that you could be asymptomatic and spread it, so they want more people to wear them so that they don't spread it rather than don't catch it.
But it's like really hard to get them, isn't it?
Yeah, but there are patterns online, and I've posted this in our
Oh, yeah,
Discord
yeah.
and in Oceans for people that are on Oceans Discord, because I know that
That's
we've got
all.
a few friends over there that
I
came
saw like
in.
Telltale was talking about like maybe printing some off of a 3D printer. Is that even possible?
No, unfortunately, the filters, like the gaps in the 3D printed masks are too large, and you can't like get your hands on the filters. He was trying to say that it's not like they don't help because the virus can slip through, which is only partially true. What the mask can do is for up to 2 to 4 hours, from what I was reading, if you make them at home, like from scrap t-shirts or tea towels, there's a whole list of different materials you can make them out of. Vacuum bags was on that list. Then for 2 to 4 hours, they can block something like 60 to 80%, depending on the material, of the particulates that you expel, which can very much decrease the chance that if you are an asymptomatic carrier or somebody who had it, got over it, and is shedding, your chances of spreading it to other people. They're not going to protect you from getting it, and no mask at all, not even the N95 ones, will protect you from getting it per se, but they will help protect you from giving it to other people.
All right, yeah, and that's what we've been saying since day one. So I wasn't sure if that had changed or not, or the science behind it had changed.
Well,
But
I
no.
mean, I know that there are special masks that you can get if you're like a hospital worker, and those will help stop you from catching it. But the vast majority of what is going to cause you to catch it is going to be touching something if you're an ordinary person, and then touching your face, your eyes, your nose, whatever, or like coming into close contact with somebody who was stupid enough to have done that, which is probably how, if everybody in my house gets sick, that's probably how we're going to get it, because my husband worked in an area where he was exposed to people who were also exposed, and he probably touched something and touched his face. It's something we all subconsciously do, but there are steps that you can do. And if you're wearing that mask, like if we leave our house for any reason, if we can't get one of our people that are helping us to get stuff, we're going to be wearing masks and gloves, and we're going to change those masks and gloves after we go out, and we're not going to use the same ones over and over, because again, we're doing that to protect other people, because we might be carriers. We might be asymptomatic, or it might be still developing in our systems. So if we do leave the house for any freaking reason, we're going to make sure that we're trying to protect other people, because we might be asymptomatic carriers, and for all we know, we gave it to him. We don't fucking know.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. Like, I'm always touching my face. If I'm growing facial hair, I'm touching. It's a nervous habit that I've always had. I think a lot of people, you don't even think about it when you're touching your face. It's just an involuntary reaction. Yeah, so I mean, it's like literally one of the hardest things to do is to not do something that you don't think about doing when you do it.
Well, and if you have access to hand sanitizer, applying it after you touch things like doorknobs is going to be a very important thing. If you have gone to the bathroom in a public space, wash the living hell out of your hands. The guide that I always give everybody is "I'm a little teapot" takes about 20 seconds to sing at normal pace. So you can kind of sing that to yourself in your head. It feels like it takes forever. That's the point. You probably don't normally wash your hands for 20 seconds. Doing that will give you a guide as to how long that lasts. Then, if there's paper towels available, grab the paper towel and use that to open the doorknob, so you don't come into contact with the germs from somebody who didn't wash their hands. These are things that germaphobes have known for a long time, but they're things that the general population right now might want to pay good attention to. Also, if you go out, make sure that you hand sanitize when you carry your groceries. Make sure that you, when you get home, wash the living balls off of your hands before you put your groceries and stuff away. Because like the conditions in which you keep your food is probably going to get rid of the virus. Like extreme cold, extreme heat, all of that destroys the outside of the viral coating. But when you're carrying it to and from, that's the time that you're going to get a chance to get exposed. So like wash your hands before you put your groceries away, wash them again afterwards. Chances are the virus is going to die before you eat most of the stuff that you have bought. But it's that time that you spent in the store that is going to have the biggest problem. If you have a pack of disposable gloves already at home, wearing a pair of disposable gloves and getting rid of them as soon as you get home, like getting rid of the pair that you were wearing, is another way that you can protect yourself as well. But don't touch your face, because those gloves aren't going to stop you from transferring viruses that you get on the gloves.
Yeah, and maybe be aware of who you're picking on. I remember so many people just picking on the Chinese back during the swine flu, and every time that you always see the Chinese wearing the mask, people be making fun of them, and now everybody in America is wearing a fucking mask. So just be aware of maybe picking on people and not understanding their situation, because maybe one day you'll be in that situation.
Allie was talking about washing hands. If you really want to learn how to wash your hands well, get some mechanical grease on your hands. Spread it around and then wash it off.
Yeah. I've always been somewhat of a germaphobe, so I'm constantly washing my hands. It's thankfully something that I passed along to my daughter because she's constantly washing her hands.
Honestly, you don't even necessarily need mechanical grease. Go dip your hands in canola oil. That'll even, like, trying to get that shit off is still a bitch.
Oh, yeah. And I'm from the South. If you get something on your hands, it's hard to get off. You just use gasoline.
But in all seriousness, those are, like, the best tips for yourself as a normal human being who is not, like, driving around everywhere to prevent things. Would you agree, Ray, like, as far as the suggestions that I've given?
I mean, the CDC, the WHO, they've all put out the same advice.
Mm-hmm.
Wash your hands, don't touch your face, and stay inside if at all possible.
Well, and the big thing with the reason that I suggested the gloves idea is because we have an immunocompromised person at our house, and that's something that we already occasionally do when we're going out specifically grocery shopping for him.
Yeah, I bought a box of gloves, and I'm a very big person. Thought I got extra large. Must have grabbed a medium because they don't fucking fit.
So when you're handling stuff, like, these are basic common sense things, but you'd have no freaking clue how big of a deal they're going to be, and we're going to get tested pretty hard right now. We've all had a chance that we've been exposed, but as my sister-in-law pointed out, like, the three of us, that doesn't necessarily mean that we've contracted it, and my husband is currently at his most, like, transmissible. He's at his most freaking contagious. So we're going to find out pretty dang quick how well what we've been able to do is going to help us, because we're in a house with somebody who most likely has it.
Yeah, and I think that, just by the numbers, eventually we're all going to know somebody that has it. It's going to be it's going to go through this country. So that's something that I think that a lot of people don't really realize is, like, this social distancing. They think, oh, that's going to protect you. No, you're probably going to get it. But the whole thing is to flatten that curve.
The whole thing is don't get it at the same time grandma gets it.
We want hospitals to have the capability of treating people for it. So that's why we're doing the social distancing thing. A lot of people just don't understand the science because they only listen to Donald Trump when he's speaking and nobody else. So I think just voicing the truth about this is the best thing you can do, because eventually, everybody's taking this seriously. Even if they're just listening to Trump, they're still taking this seriously. So I think now is the time to get through to them. Although, Allie is on my Facebook page, so she knows my frustrations with that shit right now. But that's a different story.
Yeah, there's a lot of angry motherfuckers on your Facebook page.
Yeah, it's not been pleasant for me at all. So yeah, fuck people.
So do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to impart to the audience, or anything else that you would like to share about your personal experience during the crisis, like how that's affected your job at all?
It hasn't really affected my job. I've done maybe a little bit more dry van loads, but I'm still getting loads at about the same rate I was before. They may have brought in a couple extra drivers to handle the surge, but this is no worse than Thanksgiving.
So we have a question from the chat on pets. Should my husband be keeping pets out of the house or out of the room? If you're not coughing on the pets, then you probably should be fine. Like, I don't know if pet fur counts as a hard surface the virus can hang out on. And as far as we can tell, it doesn't appear to be able to transmit to animals, at least not to animals that humans commonly keep in their house. I guess if you have a pet bat, probably don't pet that. But as far as we can tell, like, as long as you're not, like, coughing on the cat and then the cat's running into another room, or, like, sneezing in Fido's face and then Fido goes and licks your partner's face, you probably should be fine.
Before we get out of here, is it like, do they know, like, did this thing did it come from somebody eating a raw bat?
As far as we can tell, probably not. It actually looks like
All
it
right.
hopped from bats to an intermediary.
That's what
species
I'm
like
seeing
pangolins.
that shit on Facebook, and I'm like, that can't. That's not
No,
real.
that's an oversimplification of the fact that in a particular section of China, people eat not raw, but cooked bat as a delicacy. But no, what it looks like currently from tracking the DNA, it looks like the virus popped from a bat to an intermediary species. They're saying it's most likely a pangolin. So probably the illegal pangolin trade may have had something to do with it, and that pangolin may have caused the mutation that allows it to lock onto human cells. So it probably had nothing to do with humans eating anything. It probably had a lot to do with just humans having contact with a species that had a similar enough cell structure to us for it to be able to hop to us.
And that's the problem right now. Like, there's just so much like just stupid out there. It's hard to find reality. Like, it's like, I don't ever trust anything on Facebook anymore, not unless it's from one of my political sites or a news site. I just don't trust people and their information because people are fucking stupid. And I can't tell you how. I mean, so many memes of Ozzy Osbourne. I was eating bats years ago. I mean, it's all over the fucking place. So
Well,
people,
and
stop being stupid.
Navardia actually answered Frosty's question as well. Navardia works in healthcare type stuff, I think. I know that she's doing a degree in science, so she'd probably know a little more than I would. But yeah, pangolins are like an armadillo. But as far as a couple of other myths, since we always do myth busting when we do COVID stuff, a couple of other myths. No, as far as we can tell, it did not escape from the the animal testing facility that is miles down the road from that open air market. They do not believe that it came from there. No,
Israel didn't make it. As much as I dislike the right-wing government of Israel, they didn't fucking make it.
Well, and if you guys want an article, I can find one for you really quick. There was an article I read where that got debunked. When they started sequencing the genome, the particular mutation that allowed it to attach to human cells is not a vector that scientists would have explored in terms of like figuring out how to make it infectious to humans. There are ways that coronaviruses have become infectious to humans. SARS is one of them, but this vector is entirely new. That's part of what makes it so scary, and it's also part of the reason why it can make immune cells go nuts so people drown in their own blood. Like that vector is entirely unique, and it is not something that was before known to science. It is an entirely new evolutionary development as a result of this cross-species jump. So it's very clearly the product of evolution. Sorry, Christians, it was not made in a lab.
Sorry. Yeah, I have never. Sorry.
So
I've never heard my upstairs neighbors before. Never. I've never heard them. They're quiet people until this isolation, and it sounds like they're killing their children. I'm like, man, what the fuck is going on up there? Like, what the fuck? Leave them kids alone.
So the other thing, colloidal silver can't cure it. Vitamin C cannot, quote, boost your immune system. Neither can any sort of like blood transfusion therapy. If you're deficient in vitamin C, then taking a supplement's going to help you a bit in the sense that not having enough vitamin C can fuck with your immunofunction. But if you're getting enough, then extra vitamin C is just going to go right out your urethra, because that's what happens to water-soluble vitamins when you have too much of them. Like, taking extra even if you're sick isn't going to help you. Also, elderberry syrup, it cannot cure coronavirus. However, what little evidence there is for what it does shows that it appears to increase histamine response to viruses in general. However, we have not studied what it does to this one, and given that immunoresponse, like excessive immune response, appears to be what results in people dying in hospitals, taking it for this may not be the best idea, given that there's no research showing that it's effective. Trump lied and claimed that there is a drug out there that can treat coronavirus. There is not. There's a bunch of things that are undergoing CDC trials at the moment at a number of different universities. Nothing has come out as definitive. There are false emails going around saying that China has found multiple drugs that helped treat things, and that is true in the case of 10 to 20 people. There has not been a large-scale trial done on any treatment whatsoever. So there's a lot of misinformation, including some that's coming from our president. If it doesn't come from WHO or the CDC, it's a fucking lie. Like, I know people are really desperate for hope right now, but for right now, most of that information, we just don't have it yet. And unfortunately, you're a hero if you stay home. That is the best thing you can do.
Yeah. So let's close out. I think, man, that kid is going crazy. I don't know if y'all can hear him, but holy shit. I'm glad I'm through that stage. I'm just gonna put that out there. I really want to thank Ray for coming on and sharing a little bit about the supply chain and what's going on. The truckers are the road warriors right now. They are keeping the supply chain going and putting themselves at risk. Honestly, when a lot of us are staying home. It's vital that they continue to do this. I want to thank you for coming on and talking with us for a little bit.
Thank you for reaching out and volunteering to do this, because this was entirely your idea, and I want to give you total credit for that. That's amazing.
Not a problem.
And I hope that if any other truckers want to come on and talk about your experiences or anything in the future, feel free to reach out to myself or Knock on Twitter or through email. Because
this is something that we're going to be talking about as we're going through, as this is going on. We are trying to get back to some more religious content and
we are.
Some conversations with some religious folks. But Corona is something that we are going to be covering periodically until it's over. I think it's important, and especially as Ali was saying, all the misinformation out there. So easy to get caught up in it. We need to be communicating. But yeah, we'll let you finish out, Ali, and let our guests say goodbye, and we'll get out of here.
All right, so we have a couple of announcements that we're going to be putting out.
I got to talk about Modern Day Debate. Thank you.
Yeah, so Knock is going to be on Modern Day Debate talking about, he's going to be debating with a creationist about...
not a creationist. Not a creationist. He's a Christian evolutionist, actually. But he is going to be talking about fine-tuning and does physics... We're gonna be debating, does physics point towards atheism or theism?
And the answer is physics is a methodology. But anyway, debate over, right? The other big announcement that we have for this particular channel, number one, I'm going to be trying to get out my response to Steven Anderson and his bullshit coronavirus stuff very, very soon. So look for the launch of the Pissed Off Polytheist. Also, currently, Ocean and Cirrus and I have been planning a collaborative for Hammered Out, and we're hoping that that's going to happen this coming Thursday, I believe, this next episode. So that is that was confirmed earlier, and I'm going to be coming on to talk about the YSEE, which is a racist Hellenist organization that hates Jewish people and Turkish people. So we're going to be talking about them, and I'm going to be doing a response series fairly soon to somebody who is in my community who's kind of a dirtbag within that particular organization. So we're going to be talking about that. The other big announcement for our channel is that on Wednesday, we're going to be having Mama Atheist on, who is a climate scientist and who has an undergrad degree in astrophysics. So she's going to be coming on to talk about her research on Wednesday at 9 EST. And she'll probably take some physics and climate science questions. You know, the answer to, have you been in a lab? Have you written papers on this? When you ask her about climate science is yes. So I'm sure we're going to get lots of chuds in the chat that want to get into fights. If you've got Republican friends who want to talk directly to a climate scientist in our chat and ask them questions, well, guess what? We're going to have one here. And she is a brand new baby channel. She's only got a couple hundred subscribers, so we're hoping to get her some more reach.
Yeah. Any parting words, Ray? Again, I just want to thank you for coming on and shedding a little light of what's going on behind the scenes. And people, you'll get your fucking toilet paper. Just give us some time.
We've got one last announcement at the end, by the way. That is a very true statement, Knox. Give us some time to get it there. Honestly, my wife is slightly immunocompromised. I'm about half terrified to go home at this point.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Just give us time to get it there. The product is in the supply chain. It just has to filter down. Stop panic buying stuff. Buy your normal groceries. But don't go out more than you have to.
Yeah, good advice.
All right, last announcement before we head out. Nervardia did a video on the John Richards controversy, and I got to help out with the script for it, so I kind of know what's coming. But for all of y'all that were not so privileged as to be friends with her, or, to have been a part of that video making process, that video is about to premiere in an hour. So if y'all want to head over to her channel and hit the notification bell so that you can be there for that, we're going to get to see her sort of recollections on the event itself, the interview that we kind of reviewed with her, and the fallout that happened afterward, which is quite fascinating. There's a couple of bombshells in this one, having helped work on the script. You guys aren't going to want to miss it.
Is that at 10 Eastern or 10:15 Eastern?
That's going to be at about 10 Eastern, I believe. She can correct me in the chat if she wants to.
I'll be there. So yeah, come watch the video with me and interact in the chat. It'd be fun.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be there too. Again, I helped work on it. I got to see it earlier when she put it out to patrons because she's like, hey, you helped me do the script, so I'm going to get to take a look at it. I think she sent it out to everybody else who lent their voice to it too, because there's lots of guests that got to help out as well.
10:30
Eastern.
All right, so 10:30 Eastern, guys. Yeah, go over, and if you haven't subscribed to Nervadia, do so. Not only great work on this atheist convention, and I'll call him a douchebag because I'm a rage, but
oh, I call him a douchebag right along with you. I raged at him.
But she also does really good science work, y'all. I think you'll enjoy Nervadia's channel. And yeah, go support Nervadia and come chat with me in the chat.
Well, and if you guys haven't gotten a chance to see it, she actually references our stream in that video. So the one that she came on for the interview earlier, we did a review on the article that he wrote, and she references that. So if you guys haven't caught that, you got an hour and a half. Go about 30 to 45 minutes into that stream and watch from there. You can get a pretty good picture of kind of the article and the way that all fell out from that, and also the idea of who this friend that he was naming the article after and basing all of his defenses on happened to be, because we did a deep dive into his buddy, and boy, was there some stuff to find.
Yeah, yes. We should maybe cover that again, because yeah, I think that more information just keeps coming out, and so yeah, maybe we'll have to go at Lance and John again. But we're gonna get out of here, guys. So have a good night. Thank you so much for joining us. Thinking we're probably gonna move the show to like Saturday night or something. We're gonna figure out the best night for the Seeing Red show. Apostate Alliance will be coming with a new episode. If you are an ex-Muslim and you would like to be on an Apostate Alliance, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Ali. The best way would be to reach out to John Peterson or to Faye the Most Gracious. They are actively seeking people to come on the show right now. If you are interested, please get a hold of one of us. But until the next time, don't have the Discord ready yet. I've been super, super busy. I'm going to get that ready for this programming here. So my patrons, not Discord, my patrons can get that recognition because I love you all. But we are going to get out of here. Y'all have a good night. Be the conversation.